What is emotional intelligence, EQ?
Emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize, understand, manage, and effectively use emotions in yourself and others. It was popularized by psychologist Daniel Goleman and is considered a key predictor of personal and professional success.
Who is Daniel Goleman?
Daniel Goleman is a psychologist and author who popularized the concept of emotional intelligence with his 1995 best-selling book Emotional Intelligence: Why It Can Matter More Than IQ. His work brought EQ into mainstream psychology and business.
What are the 5 components of Goleman's EQ model?
Goleman's model includes 1. Self-awareness, 2. Self-regulation, 3. Motivation, 4. Empathy, and 5. Social skills. The first 3 are intrapersonal, self-focused, competencies, while the last 2 are interpersonal, others-focused.
What is self-awareness in emotional intelligence?
Self-awareness is the ability to recognize and understand your own emotions, moods, drives, and their effect on others. It includes knowing your strengths and weaknesses and having a realistic self-assessment and confident sense of self-worth.
What is self-regulation in emotional intelligence?
Self-regulation is the ability to control or redirect disruptive impulses and moods, and to think before acting. It involves managing emotional reactions, maintaining composure under pressure, and adapting to changing circumstances.
What is motivation in Goleman's EQ model?
In the EQ model, motivation refers to the inner drive to pursue goals with energy and persistence beyond external rewards like money or status. Emotionally intelligent individuals are driven by a passion for their work and a desire for achievement.
What is empathy in emotional intelligence?
Empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another person. In Goleman's model, it involves recognizing others' emotional states, considering their perspectives, and responding with appropriate care and concern.
What are social skills in emotional intelligence?
Social skills refer to the ability to manage relationships and build networks effectively. This includes communication, conflict management, leadership, collaboration, influence, and the ability to find common ground and build rapport.
How is EQ different from IQ?
IQ measures cognitive intelligence, reasoning, logic, problem-solving, while EQ measures emotional intelligence, self-awareness, empathy, social skills. Research suggests EQ is a stronger predictor of workplace success than IQ, accounting for up to 58% of job performance.
Can emotional intelligence be learned and improved?
Yes, unlike IQ, which is relatively fixed, EQ can be developed and improved throughout life through practice, feedback, coaching, and deliberate self-reflection. Neural pathways for emotional skills strengthen with repeated use.
What is emotional vocabulary?
Emotional vocabulary is the range of words you can use to precisely describe your emotional states. Rather than saying just bad, a rich emotional vocabulary lets you distinguish between feeling frustrated, disappointed, anxious, or overwhelmed, leading to better self-understanding.
Why is a rich emotional vocabulary important?
A rich emotional vocabulary allows you to identify emotions more precisely, which leads to better regulation strategies. Research by Lisa Feldman Barrett shows that people who can granularly label their emotions experience less emotional intensity and make better decisions.
What is emotional granularity?
Emotional granularity is the ability to make fine-grained distinctions between similar emotions. For example, distinguishing between irritation, frustration, and rage rather than lumping them all as angry. Higher granularity is linked to better emotional regulation and mental health.
What is an emotional trigger?
An emotional trigger is a stimulus, person, situation, or event that provokes a strong emotional reaction, often disproportionate to the situation. Triggers usually connect to past experiences, unmet needs, or deeply held values and beliefs.
How can you identify your emotional triggers?
Identify triggers by noticing patterns in your strong emotional reactions. What situations consistently upset you? What were you thinking and feeling just before the reaction? Keeping an emotion journal helps reveal recurring triggers and underlying needs.
What is emotional hijacking, amygdala hijack?
An amygdala hijack occurs when the brain's emotional center, amygdala, overrides the rational prefrontal cortex, triggering an intense fight or flight response. This explains why people say or do things they regret during emotional outbursts. The thinking brain is temporarily offline.
How can you manage anger effectively?
To manage anger, pause before reacting, count to 10 or take deep breaths, identify the underlying need or boundary being violated, use I statements to express your feelings, and remove yourself from the situation if needed to cool down.
What are strategies for managing anxiety?
Manage anxiety by practicing deep breathing or grounding techniques, 5-4-3-2-1 senses exercise, challenging catastrophic thinking, breaking overwhelming tasks into small steps, limiting caffeine and news consumption, and seeking professional support when anxiety becomes persistent.
How can sadness be processed in a healthy way?
Process sadness by allowing yourself to feel it rather than suppressing it, naming the emotion specifically, journaling about what triggered it, seeking social support, engaging in gentle physical activity, and recognizing that sadness is a natural and temporary emotion.
What is active listening?
Active listening involves fully concentrating on what someone is saying, rather than passively hearing or planning your response. It includes maintaining eye contact, nodding, paraphrasing what you heard, asking clarifying questions, and withholding judgment.
What are the key components of active listening?
Key components include paying full attention, no distractions, showing you are listening, body language, nodding, providing feedback, paraphrasing, summarizing, deferring judgment, and responding appropriately with empathy and relevant follow-up questions.
What is reflective listening?
Reflective listening involves mirroring back what the speaker said in your own words to confirm understanding. For example, it sounds like you're feeling frustrated because your contributions aren't being recognized. This validates the speaker and ensures accurate comprehension.
What is empathetic communication?
Empathetic communication involves expressing understanding and care for another person's experience while communicating. It includes acknowledging their feelings, validating their perspective, and responding with compassion rather than advice, judgment, or dismissal.
What is the difference between empathy and sympathy?
Empathy involves feeling with someone, sharing their emotional experience, and understanding their perspective from the inside. Sympathy involves feeling for someone, acknowledging their situation from the outside, often with pity. Empathy fosters connection, sympathy can create distance.
What are the three types of empathy?
The three types are 1. Cognitive empathy, understanding someone's perspective, 2. Emotional empathy, feeling what someone else feels, and 3. Compassionate empathy, understanding and feeling, plus being moved to help. Effective EQ involves all three.
What is conflict resolution?
Conflict resolution is the process of finding a peaceful solution to a disagreement. It involves understanding each party's needs, finding common ground, and negotiating a mutually acceptable outcome while preserving the relationship.
What are the 5 conflict management styles, Thomas Gilman model?
The 5 styles are 1. Competing, assertive, uncooperative, 2. Accommodating, unassertive, cooperative, 3. Avoiding, unassertive, uncooperative, 4. Collaborating, assertive, cooperative, and 5. Compromising, moderate on both. The best style depends on the situation.
What is the role of EQ in conflict resolution?
EQ helps in conflict resolution by enabling you to stay calm under pressure, understand the other party's emotions and needs, communicate without blame, regulate your own defensive reactions, and find creative solutions that address underlying concerns rather than surface positions.
What is an I statement and why is it useful?
An I statement expresses feelings using the format I feel, emotion, when, situation, because, reason. For example, I feel frustrated when meetings start late because it cuts into my productive time. It takes ownership of emotions without blaming others, reducing defensiveness.
What is emotional resilience?
Emotional resilience is the ability to adapt to and recover from stress, adversity, or setbacks. Resilient individuals maintain a positive outlook, learn from difficulties, and bounce back more quickly. It is a skill that can be developed through practice and mindset shifts.
What are the key factors that build resilience?
Key resilience factors include strong social connections, a sense of purpose, realistic optimism, self-efficacy, belief in your ability to cope, emotional regulation skills, cognitive flexibility, and the ability to find meaning in adversity.
What is a growth mindset?
A growth mindset, coined by Carol Dweck, is the belief that abilities and intelligence can be developed through dedication, effort, and learning. People with a growth mindset embrace challenges, persist through setbacks, and see effort as a path to mastery.
How does growth mindset differ from fixed mindset?
A fixed mindset believes talents are innate and unchangeable. I'm not good at math. While a growth mindset believes abilities can be developed, I can improve at math with practice. This distinction profoundly impacts motivation, learning, and resilience.
How does emotional intelligence relate to giving feedback?
High EQ enables you to deliver feedback that is honest yet respectful. It involves choosing the right time and setting, focusing on specific behaviors rather than character, expressing the impact, offering suggestions for improvement, and checking for understanding.
What is the SBI feedback model?
The SBI model structures feedback as situation, describe when and where, behavior, describe the specific observable action, and impact, describe the effect of the behavior. Example, in yesterday's meeting, S, when you interrupted the presenter, B, it made them lose their train of thought, I.
How should you receive feedback effectively?
To receive feedback well, listen without interrupting or becoming defensive, ask clarifying questions, thank the person for their input, take time to reflect before responding, and identify specific actions you can take. Remember that feedback is information, not a personal attack.
What is nonverbal communication?
Nonverbal communication includes body language, facial expressions, tone of voice, eye contact, gestures, and posture. Studies suggest that 55 to 93% of communication is nonverbal, making awareness of these cues essential for emotional intelligence.
What does crossed arms typically signal in body language?
Crossed arms often signal defensiveness, discomfort, or self-protection, though it can also simply mean someone is cold or comfortable. Context matters. Consider the full range of nonverbal cues and the situation before drawing conclusions.
Why is eye contact important in communication?
Appropriate eye contact signals attention, confidence, and engagement. Too little eye contact can suggest disinterest or dishonesty, while too much can feel intimidating. Culturally appropriate eye contact builds trust and connection during conversations.
What is mirroring in social interactions?
Mirroring is the unconscious or deliberate copying of another person's body language, speech patterns, or attitudes. It builds rapport and signals empathy. People naturally mirror those they like or agree with, and doing so intentionally can strengthen social bonds.
How can you build rapport with someone quickly?
Build rapport by finding common ground, using the person's name, mirroring their body language and energy level, showing genuine curiosity through open-ended questions, actively listening, and being authentic rather than trying to impress.
What is emotional contagion?
Emotional contagion is the phenomenon where one person's emotions trigger similar emotions in others. It happens through nonverbal cues and mirror neurons. Leaders with high EQ are aware of this effect and consciously manage the emotional tone they set.
What are emotional boundaries?
Emotional boundaries are limits you set to protect your emotional well-being in relationships. They define what you will and won't accept from others, how much emotional labor you'll provide, and when to say no. Healthy boundaries are essential for maintaining your own emotional health.
How do you set healthy emotional boundaries?
Set boundaries by identifying your limits, what feels acceptable versus draining, communicating them clearly and calmly using I statements, being consistent in enforcing them, and accepting that others may initially resist. Remember that boundaries are about your behavior, not controlling others.
What is emotional labor?
Emotional labor is the process of managing your emotions to fulfill the emotional requirements of a job or relationship. Examples include staying calm with an angry customer, suppressing frustration in meetings, or always being the strong one in a family.
What is the Johari window?
The Johari window is a model for understanding self-awareness and mutual understanding in relationships. It has 4 quadrants: open, known to self and others; blind, known to others but not self; hidden, known to self but not others; and unknown, known to neither.
How does EQ affect leadership effectiveness?
Leaders with high EQ inspire trust, motivate teams, and navigate complex interpersonal dynamics more effectively. Research shows EQ accounts for nearly 90% of what distinguishes outstanding leaders from average ones, according to Goldman's research at senior levels.
What is transformational leadership and how does it relate to EQ?
Transformational leadership involves inspiring and motivating followers to exceed expectations through vision, intellectual stimulation, and individual consideration. It heavily relies on EQ skills like empathy, inspirational communication, and awareness of others' needs and development.
What is psychological safety in a team?
Psychological safety is the shared belief that a team is safe for interpersonal risk-taking. Members feel comfortable speaking up, admitting mistakes, and asking questions without fear of punishment or embarrassment. Google's Project Aristotle found it was the #1 factor in high-performing teams.
How can leaders create psychological safety?
Leaders create psychological safety by modeling vulnerability, admitting their own mistakes, responding constructively to bad news, encouraging diverse perspectives, framing failure as learning, asking open-ended questions, and expressing appreciation for contributions.
What is emotional self-regulation and why does it matter at work?
Emotional self-regulation is the ability to manage disruptive emotions and impulses in professional settings. It prevents reactive decisions, maintains productive relationships, and enables clear thinking under pressure. It is especially critical during negotiations, performance reviews, and crisis situations.
What is the 6-second pause technique?
The 6-second pause involves waiting 6 seconds before responding when you feel an emotional reaction rising. This brief delay allows the neurochemical surge of emotion to pass through the brain, giving the rational prefrontal cortex time to engage.
What is cognitive reappraisal?
Cognitive reappraisal is an emotion regulation strategy that involves reinterpreting a situation to change its emotional impact. For example, reframing a job rejection as an opportunity to find a better fit rather than proof that I'm not good enough.
What is the difference between suppression and reappraisal?
Suppression involves hiding emotional expression without addressing the underlying feeling, unhealthy long-term, while reappraisal involves changing how you think about a situation to genuinely alter the emotional response. Research consistently shows reappraisal is more effective.
What is the name it to tame it technique?
Name it to tame it, coined by Dr. Dan Siegel, is the practice of labeling your emotions to reduce their intensity. When you name an emotion, e.g., I'm feeling anxious, it activates the prefrontal cortex and calms the amygdala, giving you more control.
What is self-compassion and how does it relate to EQ?
Self-compassion, researched by Kristen Neff, involves treating yourself with kindness during failure or difficulty. Its three components are self-kindness versus self-judgment, common humanity versus isolation, and mindfulness versus over-identification. It strengthens EQ by reducing self-criticism and building resilience.
What is the difference between reaction and response?
A reaction is an automatic, often emotional behavior triggered by a stimulus, e.g., snapping at someone. A response is a thoughtful, deliberate action that considers the situation and consequences. EQ helps you shift from reactive to responsive.
What is the wheel of emotions, Plutchik's model?
Robert Plutchik's Wheel of Emotions identifies 8 primary emotions: joy, trust, fear, surprise, sadness, disgust, anger, and anticipation. Each has varying intensities, e.g., annoyance, anger, rage, and combinations create complex emotions, e.g., joy plus trust equals love.
How can journaling improve emotional intelligence?
Journaling improves EQ by providing a structured space for self-reflection. Writing about emotions helps you identify patterns, process difficult experiences, develop emotional vocabulary, and gain perspective. Regular journaling builds self-awareness and self-regulation over time.
What is emotional flooding?
Emotional flooding occurs when emotions become so intense that cognitive functioning is impaired. Heart rate rises above 100 bpm, and the ability to listen, think clearly, or empathize is severely compromised. The Gottman Institute recommends a 20-minute break when flooding occurs.
What is the Gottman repair attempt in relationships?
A repair attempt is any statement or action that prevents negativity from escalating during conflict. Examples include humor, a touch, an apology, or saying, "I'm sorry, let me try that again." Successful couples make and receive repair attempts effectively.
What are micro-expressions?
Micro-expressions are brief, involuntary facial expressions lasting only 1/25 to 1/5 of a second that reveal genuine emotions a person may be trying to hide. Recognizing them is a skill that enhances empathy and the ability to read social situations accurately.
What is perspective taking?
Perspective taking is the cognitive ability to see a situation from another person's point of view. Unlike emotional empathy, feeling what others feel, it is a deliberate mental exercise that helps you understand others' motivations, concerns, and reasoning.
How does EQ impact negotiation skills?
High EQ improves negotiation by enabling you to read the other party's emotions and interests, manage your own anxiety and frustration, build rapport, find creative win-win solutions, and know when to push and when to concede.
What is assertive communication?
Assertive communication is expressing your thoughts, feelings, and needs directly, honestly, and respectfully without being aggressive or passive. It honors both your rights and the rights of others. Example: I need the report by Friday to meet our deadline.
What is the difference between assertive, aggressive, passive, and passive-aggressive communication?
Assertive, direct and respectful. Aggressive, hostile, blaming, dominating. Passive, avoiding conflict, not expressing needs. Passive-aggressive, indirect hostility, sarcasm, silent treatment. Assertive communication is the healthiest style and core to emotional intelligence.
What is the role of vulnerability in emotional intelligence?
Vulnerability, as researched by Breen Brown, involves having the courage to show up and be seen when there are no guarantees. It is essential to EQ because authentic connection requires emotional openness, and leaders who show appropriate vulnerability build deeper trust.
What is emotional awareness versus emotional intelligence?
Emotional awareness is the first step, simply recognizing that emotions are present. Emotional intelligence goes further by including the ability to understand, manage, and effectively use those emotions in yourself and your interactions with others.
What is the concept of emotional bank account?
Stephen Covey's emotional bank account is a metaphor for trust in a relationship. Positive interactions, kindness, keeping promises, active listening, are deposits, while negative interactions, criticism, broken promises, disrespect, are withdrawals. Healthy relationships maintain a high balance.
How can you develop empathy deliberately?
Develop empathy by actively listening without planning your response, reading fiction, which research shows builds empathy, volunteering with diverse populations, asking how would I feel in their situation, and practicing loving-kindness meditation.
What is social awareness?
Social awareness is the ability to accurately read social situations, understand group dynamics, and sense others' emotions and needs. It includes organizational awareness, understanding power dynamics and politics, and service orientation, anticipating customer or stakeholder needs.
What is the marshmallow test and what does it show about emotional regulation?
The marshmallow test, conducted by Walter Mischel in the 1960s, offered children a choice between one marshmallow now or two later. Children who delayed gratification showed better life outcomes decades later, demonstrating the long-term importance of self-regulation.
What is the negativity bias and how does it affect emotional intelligence?
The negativity bias is the brain's tendency to give more weight to negative experiences than positive ones. It evolved for survival but can distort perception in modern life. EQ involves recognizing this bias and consciously balancing your attention to include positive information.
What is emotional agility?
Emotional agility, coined by Susan David, is the ability to be flexible with your thoughts and feelings to respond optimally to everyday situations. It involves facing emotions with curiosity, stepping out from them, not being controlled by them, and acting according to your values.
How does stress affect emotional intelligence?
Chronic stress impairs the prefrontal cortex, rational thinking, while activating the amygdala, emotional reactivity, effectively lowering your EQ. Under stress, people become more reactive, less empathetic, and worse at reading social cues. Stress management is therefore essential for maintaining EQ.
What is the role of humor in emotional intelligence?
Appropriate humor builds rapport, diffuses tension, and signals social intelligence. Emotionally intelligent people use humor to connect with others, lighten difficult conversations, and cope with stress, while being aware that humor can also be used destructively, sarcasm, mockery.
What is the Dunning-Kruger effect and how does it relate to self-awareness?
The Dunning-Kruger effect is a cognitive bias where people with low competence overestimate their ability, while highly competent people underestimate theirs. In terms of EQ, it highlights why honest self-assessment and seeking feedback are critical for accurate self-awareness.
What is the difference between hearing and listening?
Hearing is the passive, physiological process of perceiving sound. Listening is the active, intentional process of paying attention to, interpreting, and responding to what someone is communicating. Emotional intelligence requires genuine listening, not just hearing.
What is motivational interviewing?
Motivational interviewing is a counseling approach that uses empathy and reflective listening to help people resolve ambivalence about change. It is widely used in healthcare and coaching and relies heavily on EQ skills like empathy, open questions, and affirming autonomy.
What is the concept of emotional intelligence 2.0?
Emotional Intelligence 2.0 by Travis Bradbury and Jean Greaves presents a practical framework with 4 core skills: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. It includes an EQ assessment and 66 strategies for improving each skill.
How does EQ relate to decision-making?
Emotions provide valuable information for decision-making. Neuroscientist Antonio Damasio's research shows that people with damage to emotional brain centers make poor decisions despite intact logic. EQ helps you use emotional data wisely without being overwhelmed by it.
What is the somatic marker hypothesis?
Proposed by Antonio Damasio, the somatic marker hypothesis suggests that emotional processes guide, or bias, decision-making through bodily sensations. Gut feelings are actually learned emotional associations stored in the body that help us make faster, often better decisions.
What is the difference between emotional intelligence and emotional manipulation?
Emotional intelligence involves using emotional skills ethically and authentically for mutual benefit, while emotional manipulation uses the same awareness to exploit, control, or deceive others for personal gain. The key difference is intent. Genuine EQ is grounded in empathy and respect.
What is compassion fatigue?
Compassion fatigue is the emotional and physical exhaustion that results from prolonged exposure to others' suffering, common in caregivers, healthcare workers, and helping professionals. Managing it requires setting emotional boundaries, practicing self-care, and developing sustainable empathy strategies.
What is the difference between EQ and personality?
Personality traits, like introversion/extroversion, are relatively stable characteristics, while EQ is a set of learnable skills. An introvert can have high EQ, and an extrovert can have low EQ. Personality describes your tendencies, EQ describes your emotional competencies.
How can organizations develop emotional intelligence culture?
Organizations build EQ culture by hiring for emotional intelligence, training leaders in EQ skills, modeling vulnerability from the top, creating feedback-rich environments, measuring and rewarding collaborative behaviors, and embedding EQ into performance evaluations.
What is the role of trust in emotional intelligence?
Trust is the foundation of all effective relationships and is built through consistent demonstrations of EQ, keeping promises, showing empathy, being transparent, admitting mistakes, and respecting boundaries. Without trust, even high EQ skills cannot create genuine connection.
What is the ladder of inference?
The ladder of inference, created by Chris Argyris, describes how we move from observable data to conclusions and actions through a series of mental steps: selecting data, adding meaning, making assumptions, drawing conclusions, and taking action, often without checking our assumptions.
What is the emotional intelligence skill of reading the room?
Reading the room is the ability to quickly assess the collective emotional state of a group: tension, enthusiasm, boredom, conflict, through nonverbal cues, tone, and energy. It allows you to adapt your behavior, communication style, and timing appropriately.
How does EQ affect physical health?
Research shows that higher EQ is associated with better physical health outcomes, including lower blood pressure, reduced cortisol levels, stronger immune function, and fewer stress-related illnesses. Poor emotional regulation contributes to chronic inflammation and cardiovascular risk.
What are the signs of low emotional intelligence?
Signs of low EQ include difficulty managing emotions, frequent interpersonal conflicts, inability to accept criticism, blaming others for problems, poor listening skills, insensitivity to others' feelings, rigid thinking, and difficulty maintaining close relationships.
What is the 90-second rule about emotions?
Neuroscientist Jill Bolt Taylor explains that the physiological lifespan of an emotion in the body is approximately 90 seconds. If an emotion persists beyond that, it is because we are re-stimulating it through our thoughts. Awareness of this can help interrupt emotional spiraling.
How can parents develop emotional intelligence in children?
Parents develop children's EQ by labeling and validating their emotions. I see you're feeling frustrated, teaching coping strategies, modeling emotional regulation, reading stories that explore feelings, and creating a safe space for emotional expression without judgment.
What is the difference between empathy and codependency?
Empathy is understanding and sharing others' feelings while maintaining your own identity and boundaries. Codependency involves losing yourself in others' emotions and problems, taking excessive responsibility for their well-being, and neglecting your own needs. Healthy empathy requires strong boundaries.
What is the role of curiosity in emotional intelligence?
Curiosity is a powerful EQ tool because it shifts you from judgment to inquiry. When you're genuinely curious about why someone behaves a certain way or why you feel a certain emotion, you open space for understanding, empathy, and more creative problem solving.
What is the emotional check-in practice?
An emotional check-in is a brief self-awareness exercise where you pause several times a day to ask, what am I feeling right now? Where do I feel it in my body? What might be causing this? Regular check-ins build the habit of self-awareness and prevent emotional buildup. What is the concept of emotional agility by Susan David? Susan David defines emotional agility as the ability to navigate life's twists and turns with self-acceptance, clear-sightedness, and an open mind. It involves unhooking from difficult thoughts and emotions, and acting on your long-term values rather than short-term impulses.
What is the ruler approach to emotional intelligence?
Ruler, developed at the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence, stands for recognizing, understanding, labeling, expressing, and regulating emotions. It is used in schools to build emotional intelligence skills systematically in students and educators.
How does emotional intelligence affect teamwork?
Teams with high collective EQ demonstrate better communication, higher trust, more constructive conflict resolution, and greater collaboration. Members are more likely to share ideas openly, support each other, and navigate disagreements without damaging relationships.
What is the role of self-talk in emotional intelligence?
Self-talk, the internal dialogue you have with yourself, shapes emotional responses and behavior. Emotionally intelligent people recognize negative self-talk patterns, catastrophizing, personalizing, and consciously reframe them into more balanced, constructive narratives.
What is the emotion wheel and how is it used?
The emotion wheel is a visual tool that displays emotions in categories radiating from basic to complex. It helps people identify and label their emotions more precisely by starting with a core emotion, e.g., anger, and drilling down to more specific feelings, e.g., frustrated, bitter, humiliated.